Good evening. I'm Jay Ellis in the Program for Writing and Rhetoric here at the University of Colorado, Boulder. For anybody watching our streaming video of tonight's event, you'll notice we often just say CU. As the founding faculty advisor for the undergraduate-produced journals of creative nonfiction from CU Boulder, I want to thank everybody for joining us to celebrate the great writing and art filling our 4th annual print issue of Hindsight. This new issue, actually our 15th print publication since 2013, is made from the best writing and art we receive from contributors, by our hardworking student staff, and with the support of my colleagues in the Program for Writing and Rhetoric, especially Professor Eric Berger, and with front office help from Mindy Slaughter, Linda Nasita, and Chris Benson. Tim O'Neill in CU's Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program helps with funding, as does the Center for Student Involvement and their Student Allocation Committee. George Sawicki and his staff at Minuteman Press print these beautiful books. Hindsight is now national, indeed international, in content. But as our writing goes through blind review, it's notable that we still feature a lot of CU Boulder contributors. We'll have somebody explain how that works in a minute. We'll hear from some of them, as well as some writers unable to be here in person, yet reading for us tonight. Those writers and our keynote speaker, classical violinist and writer of a fascinating and moving memoir on music, time, and performance, Natalie Hodges, are this evening's stars. So I'll soon hand off to Ian Hall, our editor-in-chief, to tell you more about Natalie. But I have to say how grateful I am to Ian for so regularly taking over the management of our staff. You could see his eye for detail in the books we're giving away tonight, and just imagine his ability to oversee the big picture with a staff of 29 students. When Ian graduates in a couple of weeks, he will have been with us for 5 semesters. If you join staff, you don't have to stay that long, but we'd love. Through a period of unprecedented growth for Hindsight and our many other publishing projects, helping us go global in our audience and contributors, and definitely leaving an impressive legacy for all things Hindsight. Please welcome Ian Hall.
Thank you, Jay, for reminding everyone just how many of my grubby fingerprints are all over this thing. What makes Hindsight special? Jay touched on it already. It's students. What started the journal in 2013 keeps it alive today through its various print forms, and it helps usher in a new era of writers and publishers. Myself and many of the people I call friends found their passion as being a part of this staff, and I know that they will go on to do great things once their time on the journal, like mine now, comes to a close. In its print, Hindsight began by taking the work of student writers and putting it on our pages, giving many of them a chance for the first time to call themselves published. In its production, it gives undergraduates a chance to work towards something and work towards a common goal together, to learn in an active and dynamic environment. We have the chance each semester to produce something that we're proud of, something that we get to show you and share with you at these events. Speaking of, you're here tonight for one of 2 reasons. One is you're a fan of literature, or not. And you love hearing and immersing yourself in well-crafted poetry and prose, and hearing it performed by its artisans the way it was meant to be heard. You love holding a book in your hands and letting that stuff wash over you as it was meant to be. Or you saw our poster had catering on it. In either case, we're glad you're here, and we hope that both those interests were satisfied tonight. Plenty of ink has been spilled about the future of print, with the recent shuttering of the Gettysburg Review, to the much more recent collapse of the small press distribution organization. The shores we stand on are uncertain indeed. During my time on the journal, a tidy 5 issues across our 2 titles, I've seen those uncertainties wash upon our beaches, and have seen the work that had to be done to overcome them. Work that, semester after semester, produces issues like the ones you now hold in your hands. Joining us tonight to celebrate Hindsight's 4th annual print issue is Natalie Hodges. Natalie is a musician, editor, author, and Harvard graduate, not necessarily in that order, I'll let her decide, and has produced her first book, which is a combination of all those corners of her life, Uncommon Measure, a journey through music, performance, and the science of time. In it, Natalie details the story of an artist forced off the stage by anxiety and offers ruminations on the timing of it all, from the quarter note to the conscious mind. Please welcome tonight's keynote speaker, Natalie Hodges.
Hi, everybody. Oops. Okay. Greetings to you all, and thank you all so much for coming out tonight, braving the snow. I'm really glad to see everybody here, and hello to everybody who is watching on the live stream as well. Before I get started, I have some people to thank. I want to start by thanking the entire Creative Nonfiction Committee, especially Jay Ellis and Eric Berger, for inviting me to speak tonight and for all of their work in putting this wonderful event together. To Mindy Slaughter for all of her work coordinating and hammering out all the nuts and bolts, and to the CU facilities team for making it possible for us to use this lovely space. I would also like to thank Ian Hall and the entire student staff of Hindsight, and to applaud each and every one of you for your achievement in producing this truly beautiful journal. And of course, a huge congratulations to all of the contributors to this particular and really incredible issue. So please join me in a round of applause for everybody who's made tonight possible. I'd like to open my talk tonight with a passage from my book, Uncommon Measure, A Journey Through Music, Performance, and the Science of Time, and then to offer some thoughts on what I think is one of the singular contributions of creative nonfiction as a genre. The passage that I'd like to read comes from early on in the book, and it narrates a seminal experience from my musical life that motivated me to pursue my study of how the brain processes time during performance, and what that might tell us about how we integrate our experiences of time more generally. The performance was going well, almost unbelievably well, in fact. I'd practiced counting down each time the theme returned as a way of getting through the piece, of keeping track and also keeping up morale. Only 3 more repetitions of the theme till the end, now 2, now 1. Yet something strange started to happen as I counted those returns down. I felt, and this is the only way I know how to describe it, that I was inside the music's time, in the heart of a tolling grandfather clock whose gears turned at an allegretto grazioso rate of 6/8 notes to a bar. The bell tolled on the hour of the theme, but the time in between was itself whirring and unfolding, development by development, variation by variation. Ticking off the theme's returns, I felt at the same time how each section engendered the next, how they progressed into and referred back to and complicated one another, and how, in always circling back to the theme, they shaped a globe of time, a sphere of sound. Each variation's passage changed the feeling of the theme that followed it, inflecting it with the memory of all that came before, so that even as each theme relocated itself in the present, it echoed with the ghostly chimes of the past. Then I remembered that I was supposed to mess up. Time, which had been bubbling steadily along, froze. My hands seized up. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion, yet too fast for me to catch up. My left hand wouldn't shift smoothly up the fingerboard, which was unfortunate because the chromatic and arpeggiated runs accelerate from the original tempo and require, by the final measure, about 3 shifts per bar. My right hand, meanwhile, decided it was no longer capable of holding the bow, causing my bow hold to collapse and my fingers to lock, white-knuckled, just to keep from dropping the bow entirely. But then it happened. Just before the last chord, I dropped the bow. I was forced to play the chord by plucking the strings, in what was perhaps the world's unluckiest and most spontaneous demonstration of pizzicato. It's almost comical now, but whenever I think back and try to analyze what happened, I am still stricken by the memory, sick and visceral, of how it felt when time stopped. Why is it that one sense of time, so supple inside the music itself, seizes up and cracks beneath an audience's expectant gaze, or as soon as one becomes aware of that gaze, that expectation? Why does getting into the flow of the music require yielding yourself to its time, feeling its flow through and around you, when all the while time is also the enemy, the thing you're running out of as you play along, trying to make it to the end and yet trying to make something of the moment while the music lasts? If you can't get into that flow, if your nerves get the best of you and you're dragged onto the shore of self-consciousness, well, chances are you'll mess up that tricky run. or play the last chord as an anticlimactic pizzicato and hurry off the stage with your head bowed. In performances like my botched Paganini, even when you've been dreading all the while that something will go awry, you're never prepared for it. The flow is staunched, the fabric rent. You feel punched in the gut, knocked out of the music's time and back into your own. And then, afterward, you can feel the seconds and minutes passing. You trudge through. It's all linear. You just want it to be over. You just want to make it to the end. So when I do readings for Uncommon Measure, I usually select this passage because it helps establish, I hope, not only the very personal stakes of my inquiry into musical time, but also the tension between the subjective and objective that haunted my experience of time as a performer, and that ultimately drove the explorations that became this book. The question of whether there can be a meaningful reconciliation between the felt and the quantifiable. How was it possible that time felt so malleable in my mind when I could also hear it being demarcated beat by beat, inexorably, as the other performers played on? And was there a way, I wondered, of concretely, scientifically explaining why an individual sense of time can be so perception-bound, some unifying theory that might account for the ways that all of us can feel marooned in our own subjective times, even as time itself remains one of the immutable and inescapable forces that define our universe as we know it? Any attempt to answer these questions, it seemed to me, would necessarily have to draw on the realms of both science and art, of both the observable and replicable, and the intangible and transcendent. This is why I am grateful to the genre of creative nonfiction itself, and this is also what will be the real subject of my remarks tonight, our genre's endless capacity for interdisciplinariness, for inquiry that yokes together a multitude of differing ideas and voices and areas of study in an implicit acknowledgement that truth almost always lies at the intersection of different perspectives. While such hybridity can be found most obviously at the level of form, the bouncing back and forth between science reportage and personal narrative, say, or the blending of poetry and prose in a lyric essay, it is my belief that any well-wrought piece of creative nonfiction will bring together a variety of ways of seeing at the level of the prose itself. I like to talk with my own memoir and personal essay students about what I call the 3 levels of narration that any writer of creative nonfiction must move seemingly effortlessly between. The first level, the most immediate, is that of the narrated scene. The camera zooms in close. We are right there with you, the speaker, seeing what you saw and feeling what you felt in this narrated, remembered moment, hearing you speak and be spoken to. The second level is more narratively distant. You're still telling us about events that took place, but now from the perspective of hindsight, or from a desire to provide the reader with more context. Time moves faster at this second level, and the camera pans wider. The example I often use is of the opening of the memoir, When Breath Becomes Air, by the late Dr. Paul Kalanithi, a Stanford neurosurgery resident who at the height of his education was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. The book opens in that first level of narration as we watch him receive his diagnosis. We're actually in the room with him, feeling our hearts sink as he flips through the images on his own undeniable scans. And then he draws back and outward into that second level to give us a brief background on the events leading up to his diagnosis, telling us what had been happening in his life and to his body in the 6 months or so prior. But it is the third level of nonfiction narration I would like to dwell on tonight, because it is here, to my mind, that creative nonfiction offers its practitioners a way of introducing a fundamental kind of hybridity into their work, where the personal and the critical or analytical can suddenly verge on one another. This, to my mind, is the highest narrative level because it is furthest away from the experience being described. Here, the writer turns to the transcendent, universal questions that remain once the stuff of situation and chronology has filtered away. For those of you who know the meme, this is galaxy brain narration. Prose that creates and occupies this narrative space is prose that will necessarily interrogate its own perspective, ask whether it is seeing the picture of things clearly, if there are other ways of thinking about the piece's motivating questions or ideas, and, more than anything, why these questions and ideas matter. This is prose that, done well, prompts the questions as it is being written. Do I need to interview anybody else to get the full story? Do I need to research this topic further or examine it from a different perspective? Are there people who will be affected by this memoir who might remember things happening differently? Am I narrating this in a reliable way? Why am I narrating this the way that I am? And most fundamentally, how can the themes I am accessing through my own story relate to the lives of others who have completely different experiences, who know nothing of me or of my life? In Dr. Kalanithi's memoir, he moves into this third narrative level as he confronts death head-on and asks what it means for all of us to go on living when you don't know how much time you have left. It is at this level that the reader is able to witness the speaker searching humbly for themselves, because this component of nonfiction writing seeks a deeper and more nuanced understanding of, or way of articulating, the questions with which the writer began, knowing that any worthwhile question is probably not answerable in a single essay or even a single book. This seeking, however, surely counts as progress, because a deeper and more nuanced articulation is always a truer one. I want to laud each and every writer who is here tonight or watching live stream for their pursuit of the truth through this relentlessly difficult medium, which asks no less than everything of those who practice it, and which can feel like wrestling with an often reluctant and always maddening and occasionally embarrassing angel. Every one of these pieces in this issue pushes closer into the light whatever complex question about being human its writer seeks to answer. To my mind, that is our genre's highest goal, especially today, especially now. We have more access to nonfiction creations than ever, through glimpses via social media into others' lives and unfettered opinions, through polarized and unfact-checked and deceptive news, through the endless tableau of reality TV that sprawls across every Netflix home screen. But none of that is creative nonfiction. It's in the willingness of the writers in this issue of Hindsight to dwell in nuance, yearning, complication, and empathy that I see much hope for what is true and good to assert its multifaceted, many-leveled voice now and in our futures, both literary and political. So thank you all very much, and my congratulations to all of you on this really tremendous achievement. So, thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Hi, everyone. I'm Emi Calvert, the managing editor of Hindsight. This is my third semester as part of the journal. Before I introduce our next reader, I'd like to give you all a little peek behind the curtain and reveal some of the secrets behind our editorial process. Every semester, the editorial team begins by wading through piles of submissions using a blind review process. Using blind review, we read and rate pieces without seeing the names or other identifying information of the authors. Every piece is blind reviewed at least 3 times before we make a decision on whether to accept it or not. After accepting a piece, our team delves into editing, fact-checking, and working with authors. We endeavor to polish these pieces and make them shine as brightly as possible. After that, we send the piece off to the art and digital production teams so they can work their magic. The editorial staff are akin to treasure hunters, greedy for great writing and willing to risk proper nutrition and a good night's sleep to find the pieces of gold we present to you in this edition of Hindsight. As such, I'd like to take a moment to thank every editorial staff member for the hard work and long hours they put in. Hindsight wouldn't have been able to have been made without your tireless efforts. This edition of Hindsight is special for us. It represents the tremendous growth we've experienced as a journal. Last semester, we joined the community of literary magazine and presses, also known as CLMP. And as a result, we expanded to accepting more submissions from outside of CU Boulder. The past 3 volumes of Hindsight have been composed of almost entirely CU student authors, but for this issue, we achieved a ratio of 60% non-CU student authors and 40% CU student authors. The word CLMP ratio haunted me all semester, as we sought to meet the requirements of our CLMP membership while still giving a platform to the writing of CU students. As we move forward, we strive to continue to grow nationally and internationally and stay true to our roots here at CU. Now, please turn to page 58 in your books and follow along with Phia Elsass as she reads her poem, A Sour, Sour Orange.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you all to the Hindsight staff. Let me find my page. Okay, hello. My name is Phia Elsass, and like Emily said, I'll be reading my poem, A Sour, Sour Orange. If love was a fruit, Neglect would be its bitter orange peel. A fictional quote created by ChatGPT in the voice of renowned food critic Anton Ego from the movie Ratatouille, 2003. Night 1. Your fingers tore under my skin and I fell, tumbling under your pillow. Tonight you don't notice me as you toss and turn, tossing and turning, turning and tossing. Night 2. Juicy and wet, I squunch, squatch, squatch, seeping into the sheets. You don't notice the smell as you stare at the stars you drew on the ceiling. You get juice in your hair. Night 3. I'm rancid, mush, moldy, I'm a mess. Is your love truly so blind you fail to notice me? You stare at the photos under moonlight, unblinking, tear-stained cheeks. Sniff, sniff. Night 4. My smell is unbearable. Acidic vomit and I are kin. Perhaps your nose loses its nerve as you lose your nerve. You pace about the room, tapping, tapping. Night 5. A toxic waste under your pillow. Obsessive thoughts soaked up in my juices. You hold the pillow too tight, a replacement for something else. You reveal me, a midnight snack. Thank you.
Alrighty, wow, thank you. That was awesome. Let me find my script here. There we go. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Cade Yoshioka, and I am the current submissions manager as well as the incoming editor-in-chief for Changing Skies next semester. Really excited about that. But today I really wanted to talk to you about joining Hindsight staff. So for anybody here who is a current undergraduate, freshman to senior, anybody is able to come join us. Personally, I decided to join staff for the first time this semester for a couple reasons. Firstly, last semester, I was recommended it by one of our faculty advisors, Eric Berger. Shout out, he's right over there. I've taken a few classes with him, and he said I would really, really enjoy working with the staff, and I definitely have. I also am working to complete a certificate in writing sponsored by the Program for Writing and Rhetoric, which is PWR or POWER. So a couple different ways we say it here at CU Boulder. But the semester overall has been really incredible, and I am so excited to be continuing to work with the journal for this upcoming semester. As for joining staff, there are a few different ways to be a part of our team. Hindsight is listed as a class that can be registered for 3 credits. Any undergraduate student can register for Writing 3090, Open Topics in Writing, Advanced, Digital Publishing Practicum. Long title, I know. It's always a pain to type it in when you're registering. But otherwise, we have another option is to intern with us for 1, 2, 3 credit hours for upper or lower division. So again, any undergraduate students here can absolutely apply to be a part of our team, which I highly recommend you do. And lastly, we take volunteers. So even if you have just an hour a week to give us for editorial, blind review, pretty much anything, we will take you. We want you so badly. But yeah, otherwise, that is pretty much all I have. If you're interested for joining us, we definitely encourage you to check out our website. You can catch us after, any of us after one of these readings, or get in contact with Jay Ellis, and any one of us will get you some of that information. But again, thank you all for coming. Next up, we have a recorded reading by Roger Cranse of Mulbato, which can be found on page 13. Thank you.
Mulbato. A cow and its owner are walking up the path past our back door. The cow raises its tail and pees, a garden hose of urine. Its owner cups his hand, catches a palmful, and takes a delicate sip. Dick, about to bite into a naspati, says, without missing a beat, "Just a sec, let me wash off my apple." The path is a mulbato, a main artery winding over and through the mountains and valleys of central Nepal. There are no motorable roads. Everything moves by foot. There's no electricity, no indoor plumbing, no telephones. A little shortwave radio and a very slow mail service connect us to the rest of the world. I was 23 at the time. Dick was 30. I was just out of Rutgers. Dick had gone to 3 or 4 universities and finally graduated. He'd been a radio disc jockey, a short order cook, and a teacher. For me, the Peace Corps was an escape from New Jersey, from endless schooling. For Dick, I think it was the next thing in a long lifetime of next things. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. Thank you for everyone who made it through the storm to be here. We are eternally grateful for everyone braving that. Intentional. If I had to choose one word that best describes Hindsight and its surrounding staff and the authors that are published in this edition, it would be intentional. This January, I joined the practicum, not really knowing what to expect. Ian, our leader, would start every single practicum by introducing updates, and Jay would teach a little bit of tips and tricks, whether it was InDesign or Submittable or Trello board, and he would introduce everybody to everybody else. It was, seeing it then, looking with a little bit of hindsight, a fairly typical introduction to the journal. However, what wasn't as typical was the magic that would come when Ian would finally stop talking. See, the second Ian stopped talking, people would zip around in our little rolling chairs and just see each other, catching up, talking, laughing, and planning, enjoying the space with each other and enjoying our time we had together. What impressed me most was how every department engaged with every other department. I'm talking about the business department communicating about a campaign with our editorial department, all while marketing took minute notes for our art direction. It was so inspiring to see every department caring for each other, and no move was made without a great amount of consideration for its ripple effect. That is why I love this journal, the journal staff, and everything it stands for. The amount of care is paramount. I probably should introduce myself. I am Sebastian Melancon, the managing editor of Changing Skies, our second journal run by Hindsight, and the Program for Writing and Rhetoric, or PWR. Changing Skies is supported by Mission Zero, a fund for the environmental initiative on campus, and Hindsight is extremely lucky to be given this opportunity to support the cause. And Changing Skies, much like Hindsight, is the fruit of our labor. To be published in fall, Changing Skies Volume 3 is a creative nonfiction journal, much like Hindsight, with an emphasis on thematic nature, travel, and climate change. You may view our latest edition, Volume 2, online if you go to our website. So that final note, I would like to cordially thank everybody again for braving the storm and being here. We always appreciate it. And without further ado, I am honored to introduce our next author, the wonderful Cade Christensen, author of Whose Voice We Hear on Oil Fields. You may find it on page 41, excuse me.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to the Hindsight staff, to Jay Ellis for this opportunity to be a part of this. One of my favorite ways to help a toddler learn to speak is to practice more or más in a bucket swing. I push the green plastic from the front so we can see each other's faces. I listen and watch. Maybe the child smiles or wiggles to say that they want to keep swinging. I say más and wait to give the child an opportunity to try the word too. Maybe they try or ah or ma or not. The pause for the opportunity is the important part. I push again. It is often the beginning of symbolic communication. There are speech-language pathologists who treat a range of ages and communication difficulties. Some specialize in pronunciation, teaching school-aged children how to make themselves understood in the classroom. Others gravitate towards the NICU and help babies learn to feed. Some SLPs support adults after a stroke regain communication with loved ones. I love to crouch down to the toddler level and see the world through their eyes. Then I see what they're trying to communicate. And once in a while, I can help a toddler replace the scream with a sound or a gesture, or support caregivers with a few strategies to make their day a little smoother. If you see me happy dancing in the car, driving between appointments, it's because I got to spend the day playing with some kids and made some more neural connections along the way. But sometimes the joy of these moments can feel small and inconsequential given the enormity of the problems facing our planet. I wonder where I should be putting my energy and if I'm ever doing enough. That's when my inner climate crusader distracts me. It's been a lifelong affliction. When I was in grade school in the 80s, I started a recycling program for hymnals at our Catholic church. I was regularly writing letters to the editor of my small-town Iowa newspaper by the time I was in junior high. If I see a group of people marching in the street, even if I don't know what the demonstration is about, my eyes immediately tear up and I have a difficult time speaking. It is embarrassing. I can't explain it. Sometimes I blink and realize I've spent an afternoon that was earmarked for paperwork, perfecting an impassioned letter to the editor. I recently slowed myself down after years of spinning like a pinwheel in a hurricane trying to fight fracking in Colorado. Often families wonder why kids have communication delays. Sometimes the answer is clear. A chromosomal abnormality, a hearing loss, for example. Preterm delivery can also lead to communication delays. Preterm infants, babies born significantly before their due dates, are at a higher risk for autism, cerebral palsy, and behavior difficulties. Studies have shown that the more fracking sites that surround a pregnant person, the more likely they are to give birth to a preterm baby. Turns out that all of the swing sets on Colorado's Front Range are built on an oil field. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate, for that lovely reading, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us tonight. Hi, everyone. My name is Annilise Burgess. I am the social media director for Hindsight, and this is my second semester on staff. I have the pleasure of working with the marketing department, and we send out weekly newsletters, manage all the social media content, and basically keep everybody up to date on anything and everything related to Hindsight and Changing Skies. If you don't already, follow us on Instagram. It's at hindsight.journal, and check us out on Facebook. And always feel free to slide into our inbox. We love hearing from everybody. We love any questions and comments and concerns, and we're always looking for opportunities to grow. So our next reader is Daphne Rose, who will be reading her poem Printemps via video. Please turn to page 10 to follow along.
Hi, my name is Daphne Rose, and I'm the author of Printemps. The air of April inflates me. I am raw and fresh and cold inside, bilious with petals, a headache of camellias and sinuses dripping with wild radish, mustard blossoms like broken noses, and weathered vertebrae of sundial lupine. I take long walks through the blue stem, dropping pennies for the next wishful thinker to come along. Like you, all of my miracles are man-made. In the garden, cherries wet their teeth on cuttlebone and smear themselves with dark lipstick. The strawberries blush at the flirtations of the compost. Kisses are no longer enough, says the adolescent soil, blind and wet and bold. I must be the very body that houses you. In honor of the season, I've decided I too will change. I've given up on seashells and begun collecting words. Cheeseweed, Pulchridinius, scrotum, kumquat. Like gallmakers collecting on the underleaf of an arboreal mind. The setting sun helps itself to the foothills, asks me through a full mouth how I fared the winter. I tell it to go back inside, that I'm not ready to surrender the reins, but it never listens. Though I am in love with the world is indifferent to me. As the blossom must depart for the bud, and the bud for the fruit, and the fruit for the rot, so...
Thank you, Daphne. Hi, everyone. I'm Michaela Molaro, Assistant Managing Editor of Hindsight. I first want to thank you all for coming out to support us tonight. Every year, the Association of Writers and Writing Programs hosts a conference for writers and writing programs. At the conference, called AWP, writers, readers, presses, booksellers, university writing programs, and publications just like ours convene to buy books, sell books, promote their work, and connect with a passionate, ever-growing community. This year, the conference was held in Kansas City. Myself, Ian, Emily, and Liam had the opportunity to attend. There, we sold our journals, although we actually give them out for free, and promoted Hindsight to an international community. We connected with writers interested in submitting to Hindsight in Changing Skies, and with people who didn't write creative nonfiction, but who were excited to see more of it. While tabling, we visited other booths, and seeing what work other publications put out, how they promote themselves, and the variety of ideas and artistic expression was inspiring. It sparked ideas for how we could keep innovating and improving our journal. In our downtime, we explored what Kansas City had to offer: museums, aquariums, themed restaurants, a lot of barbecue. I couldn't be more grateful that I had the opportunity to go, especially with such an amazing group of people. We've spoken a lot tonight about joining staff, and you definitely should, but I think everyone else can pitch it a lot better than I can, so I won't belabor the point any further. I will, however, just say that next year's AWP is going to be in LA, so if you join staff, you might be able to go. And for anyone planning on attending next year's conference, whether you're here or watching from somewhere around the world online, make sure to look for Hindsight. If I'm not there, some other staffer will be. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Tanisha Rule, who's reading her piece, Happy Elsewhere, which you can find on page 89.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I am very excited to be here tonight. The journal is absolutely lovely. It's beautiful. And then to have the snow and the mountains as a backdrop, it doesn't get any better than that. I'm always looking for that next little bit of magic. Tanisha Rule, and I will read a short excerpt from my essay, Happy Elsewhere. The nighttime itinerary was a solid idea, but in the end, we should have reached Copenhagen in daylight. The plan was for our 10-month-old son to fall asleep on takeoff from Atlanta, ensuring a quiet and anxiety-free flight for all involved. Only one other couple with a child sat in our section, and when I walked by them, up and down the aisle in the dark, Jack cradled in my arms. The man in the other couple nodded at me. Not the chin drop of solidarity, but a bobbing head nod, like a cheer. Maybe in relief, hope that our kid would take the heat off them with a fit of his own when their infant decided to kick it up a notch. I was just as excited to see other parents. It did feel somehow less conspicuous to be on a 10-hour flight with an arm baby if someone else had one too, but I kept my cheering to a smile. We arrived in pitch black after the flight from Hartsfield-Jackson took off an hour late, and we missed our connector at Heathrow. It was the end of October. The end of October in Denmark is frosty cold, with darkness encroaching on the early evening, the light losing minutes each day to the onset of winter. The most obvious explanation for this trip would have been vacation, the dream of temporarily leaving behind the grind of housework, shopping, and meal prep. But that wasn't it. It wasn't a luxury vacay or even that much of a break. It was that Denmark had again snagged the title of happiest country in the world. Well, that and my obsession with road bikes, bike races, and bicycles in general. I wanted us to experience the lifestyle. I didn't really expect to come away with enlightenment, though come to think of it, I'd hoped for it. Word is, Christmas in Copenhagen has a magical feel. That ice silver and gold yellow lights wind endlessly throughout the entire city, around storefronts, up light posts, the cheer itself giving nighttime winter streets a warm glow. We arrived just in time for Halloween. You kind of chose a bad time to come, a barista said, handing me my cup. It was the second morning of the trip, and we ducked into a cafe for a hot drink and to bring Jack out of the cold for a moment. The rich aromas of brewed coffees and baked sweets carried through the air. I dropped 2 sweetener tablets into my coffee and considered what she said. This was her city. If we were here at a bad time, she should know. In truth, her comment rattled me. It was positively freezing out, and while I grew concerned about Jack out in those temps, we passed outdoor tables of coffee-sipping customers with their infants in covered strollers right next to them. The taxi driver who'd picked us up from the airport had given us a rundown of street etiquette while he pulled bags from the trunk. The bikes get really upset when people walk or jog in their lanes. Stay to the sides at all times. Parallel parking spots were next to the sidewalk, then the bike lane, then the lanes for traffic, then little islands for pedestrians to wait on for an all clear to frogger across. The lanes mirrored on the other side. Bikes had their own turning lanes and turning signals, and cars had others. It was tremendously well ordered, as it needs to be when bikes are recognized modes of everyday transportation. 10 o'clock, 11, midnight, people pedaled down the lanes, red lights flashing on front and rear. A woman jogged alone through the dark. She wore headphones. I stood at the front window and watched her in surprise until she was out of sight. Copenhagen is flat. I could have set down a marble anywhere on the ground and it wouldn't have rolled. My husband questioned the joy in constant bike riding, asking random strangers, "Do you still ride when it's even colder than this? What if it's raining?" It wouldn't work for us back home, summer or winter. To bike Metro Atlanta's hills while towing a kid in a covered attachment, which was typical in Copenhagen, well, we'd have to have been gladiators who aren't very smart. Like cyclists in Copenhagen, finding rogue pedestrians strolling their lanes. Drivers back home sometimes don't care for bicycles in traffic. When our son was born, my husband asked me gently to stop riding my bike on the street, to stick to the trails. "You have responsibilities now," he said, and I quit street riding my bike the way my dad quit his motorcycle when I was born. I still remember the motorcycle sitting parked on the porch, an orange Honda under an increasingly dusty, translucent cover. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanisha, and thank you all for coming to support our wonderful artists and authors. My name is Liam Downey, and I am the online managing editor for Hindsight. This is my third semester with the journal, and I initially joined Hindsight in order to read amazing pieces written by even more amazing authors, like our upcoming reader, Lailah Armstrong. And I am glad to say that in my time in the journal, I have not been disappointed. We love our print issues, but as of now, we cannot easily interact with our international audience without the website. As the online managing editor, I have had the privilege to read and edit many different pieces from many different authors. Some for print, but the ones I am most proud of are the ones that I was able to integrate into our ever-expanding repertoire of online exclusives. With a small team, shout out Finn Cruitt over there on the keys, we have been able to put out some amazing pieces exclusively for online, as well as highlight many past authors and artists via a weekly feature on our website. We also worked very closely with our marketing team, promoting events and competitions that we held within the university. One of the events that I am most proud to have been a part of this year is the Fringe Festival, for which we developed a special edition for our online Fawn title. With Fawn, we showcased the work of CU students that had submitted to Hindsight previously. Whether it's a piece I am reading for the first time or a piece I am rereading to put online, I am extremely grateful that I am so lucky to be able to interact in the literary world in the way that I do. But enough yapping from me. I'm sure you're bored. It is my great pleasure to introduce Lailah Armstrong via recording for her piece Oak Tree, which can be found on page 17 of the journal. Also, if you're interested about joining staff, stick around after and talk to any one of us.
Hi, I'm Lailah, and today I'll be reading a portion of my essay titled Oak Tree. I knew that I walked a fine line of existence from a young age. There were moments where I wondered how long I could hide before I was found, and others when I wanted to just scream until I was listened to. I did neither. I just moved where I was told. Always out, rarely in. I felt loneliness in the presence of so many at an age where loneliness didn't make sense. A cloud of exclusion shadowed my childhood. Sometimes, in moments of shade, I fear it returns. Today, years later, I sit in the yard out back of Granny and Granddaddy's. My family's gathered around for food and stories. Granny and Granddaddy lie down around the corner in the segregated cemetery, where they put in a bridge a year ago to combine the white and black side. It's all for show, my grandmother says. We just visited them. As the wind ceases and the trees quiet their wrestling, I think of Granddaddy's laugh and the silence it commanded. A car pulls in the driveway, and I remember how Granny used to wave at all of the people and how they would stop by for a chat, a cold drink, and some love. I feel that same love in the sunshine most days. My cousins continue to tease, but I learn to laugh and dish it back. Now their jokes are less about my gender and more about me being too city now. I hear the women talking and I join them, not shoot away this time. I've learned what they used to keep a secret from me. I ponder the changes life has brought on and come to realize that the spaces I longed to be in as a child, I'm in now. It's odd to me that I find myself missing the sureness of my solitude, the strolls among the trees after the boys left me behind, the time cuddled on the couch as Granddaddy slept in his chair beside me, the space in the doorframe upon the step, trying covertly to be a part of conversations I had no real clue about. I miss those moments and hate that the beauty of much of my childhood was wasted on wishing I could be included or be somewhere else. Even the word alone doesn't seem so suffocating anymore. At times, being alone is the life raft keeping me above all the crashing waves. My head turns up towards the large oak towering over my family, and despite my recent revelation, I can't help my smile. There is still mystery and solitude in the treetops, mystery I found as a girl in the yard in the woods, solitude at their wide base, things I now hold dearly as a woman. I no longer wish to figure every secret out or to be included in every space or moment if I am not meant to be, like I once did as a child. Those trees will always be there, watching, inviting, knowing I will never make it through their branches. That is enough. I follow their outstretched branches like hands raised in prayer, moving my eyes down their trunk and base. Their roots peek from the green grass like waves upon the sea. The roots are a funny thing, hidden but vital to the tree's existence, to its past, present, and future. No tree's roots are the same. They can only reach so far and stretch so wide, and not all sections of the ground are meant for them. Yet they still grow, still thrive, still have individual beauty and meaning. They are not welcomed by every patch of dirt, but they manage. Though they may seem quite simple to us, we must look a little further to see their complexities, listen a little closer to hear their stories, and humble ourselves in their beauty. Thank you.
Thank you, Lailah, for that wonderful piece. I am Emma Martinez. I'm a junior majoring in international affairs and double minoring in economics and writing and public engagement. The writing and public engagement minor is relatively new, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me after. So this is my first semester on staff, and on the day that we chose positions, I was drawn to art direction because of my own passion for art. Luckily for me, I was the only one who was interested, and Jay pretty excitedly put me down as art director. I learned many of the technical skills from Ian and mostly learned along the way. Going in, I didn't have the slightest idea of what I would be doing other than pairing art with pieces, which, to be fair, is most of the job. But it's harder than it sounds. We receive so many wonderful submissions each semester from many talented artists from all over the globe. And it becomes difficult to choose the pieces that best enhances and represents the writing piece. Painting, photographs, prints, collages, and a variety of other media add depth to the written pieces and further lift the incredible work of both artists and authors. Our team is grateful for the incredible diversity of submissions that convey a broad range of emotions and experiences to enhance the impact of Hindsight. I want to thank all the artists who have submitted art to this journal. I know it can be intimidating to put your work out into the world to be judged and used by others, and the journal is incredibly thankful for every artist who makes a submission, and we truly value each one. We now welcome Eleanor Dawson-Moore, our last speaker. Currently CU student and winner of comedy contest. Eleanor will be reading her piece, Why I Need to Be the Next Bachelorette, and you can find her writing on page 95 to follow along. Thank you all again, and welcome, Eleanor.
Hi guys. Oh gosh. The snow is already starting to get to my lungs. Oh gosh. Okay. We'll work through it together. All right, 95, right? I have my own page number. This is really exciting. All right. I've been fighting tooth and nail for love for a long time, and I'm pretty sure only one arena will grant me that love at this point. Reality television. 25 men competing to be my husband over the course of 6 to 9 weeks. Petty, clingy, sassy men picking catfights and saying things like, "Can I steal you for a sec?" and "I love you," just weeks in. Red flags don't concern me. I've always thought the color was the new black anyway. The thought alone would bring tears to my eyes, but I've already done my makeup, so we're not going to waste time with the theatrics. I'll save those for the show. Consider this, ABC, as my formal plea. I worry it is my last hope at my ripe age of 20. I dreamt last week I found a gray hair, which in woman years means my time is rapidly depleting. The Bachelorette. You cover passion, star-crossed lovers, and drama. Of course, all of my favorite things. First off, as a feminist, I'm always in favor of a woman's right to choose. Besides that, and in more relevant matters, the show contains everything a girl really needs to kickstart a romance. Pretty dresses, drunk tears, a person confusing your name with somebody that looks nothing like you. I've been preparing myself for you. The gauntlet. Modern dating has sharpened me to attack. I yearn for nothing but the honor of facing your trials and tribulations. I ran cross country as a middle schooler, and despite the inherent hell that is tweens and gym shorts, one run has reigned supreme over them all. Romance. I consider it to be the marathon of my life. Long, painful, sweaty. People tell me it's meant to feel euphoric, etc. But your show breaks love into scenes, digestible moments mostly suitable for a national audience. You make love sprint, but a finish line is, well, promised. Just the thought that I could be granted admission to your holy white picket gates is enough. So, which mysterious shadowy council am I pleading with? The Holy Trinity, Claire Freeland, Jason Ehrlich, and Bennett Graebner. I tell you my name, but that's not what's important. Here's what is. I'm a poet, and will recite sonnets if given too much wine. You should expect me to base the date challenges on the parameters of iambic pentameter, or like, how many lines are in a haiku? Gotta throw the chats a softball. Best of all, because of my poetic inclinations, and luckily for you and viewers everywhere, I'm a bit of an emotional wreck, which everybody knows makes for great television. Think Tyra's "We were all rooting for you" speech. Anytime a Vanderpump threw a cocktail. Additionally, I have an extensive wardrobe. In short bursts, thrift shopping is moderately less expensive than therapy. This means that I don't even mind that you expect all contestants to supply their own clothing. I'm a prepared girl. In fact, I can tell you confidently, right now, I could already supply my own wedding dress. and bridal shot glasses. I use them for my morning collagen because I am a beautiful, bouncy ray of light. Perfect for your Hallmark fantasy. Promise. I even have my great-grandmother's ring. I just need the husband. I just need someone to supply the candidates. Empirically speaking, I cannot be trusted to conduct the process alone. I've lent my first impression and subsequently second and third impression roses to poor matches in the past. I vetted them all meticulously, weighing the pros and cons of their Tinder bios with a near academic tenacity. To my surprise, all so far have failed to advance to anywhere near a final round. I had such high hopes for them. I've begun to realize that these failed matches and I share one striking similarity. We are both lost causes in love. ABC, this is why I need your expertise. The following serves as anecdotal evidence I hope will stir you. Exhibit A. Suitor number 1 said his favorite book was The Great Gatsby, but failed to know the author was F. Scott Fitzgerald. Exhibit B, suitor number 2 tried to perform the Kylie Jenner lip challenge instead of gifting me my well-deserved princess kiss. At least I had free lip injections for a few days. Exhibit C, suitor number 3 worked with me at a Mexican restaurant in high school. I had harbored a secret crush on him all summer until he asked me one day if I ever wanted kids. I said no. And he told me that made sense because it would only ruin my figure. I was 17. But if a man is going to mess up my makeup and wrinkle my dress and pester me about kids I'm never gonna have, I want to at least tape a few confessionals. Dear God, please let them be for the Bachelorette and not too hot to handle. I'd win the money, but would remain poor in terms of romantic inclinations. Please, as an act of philanthropy, consider me your lost but admirable case in love. Sincerely, a hopeless romantic that looks really good in a cocktail dress.
Thank you, Eleanor, and thank you to all of our readers and guests tonight. Can we get another round of applause for our guests, please? I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight from the Hindsight team, as well as on behalf of myself. On a personal note, this is my final semester as an undergraduate, and therefore my final launch event. It has been the privilege of my academic career to come out to these events and to share Hindsight with you every semester. So from me, thank you. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming out again for all of our readings. My last act as editor-in-chief will be to fire Sebastian Melancon for calling me a yapper in front of a live audience. It's okay, I have you for the fall. Yeah, well, we're gonna, it's Game of Thrones who? Anyway, thank you all so much. Again, a big shout out to everyone that supports us, the PWR, all the folks at that front desk, Eric Berger, again, for not only recruiting for us, but for supporting us behind the scenes in so many ways that he does. Mindy Slaughter for everything, for having our back always, and every other name that is currently slipping my mind. Thank you all so much for coming out. Drive safe, get some food. Have a good night, thanks.